Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I haven't made a book video in a while, so this month I want to really get back on track. So expect to see more videos or more book videos in the future. Like, I know for sure at the end of this month I'm going to do a book wrap up and talk about all the books that I read in August. So for today's video, I want to share with you guys all the books that I've been reading lately. So all of the books that I'm going to mention are books that I've read between May and July. Yeah, I know that's a big chunk of time, but I've been kind of busy lately. So let's just get right into it and stop talking. The first book that I read is Down with the System by Serge Tankian, which is a memoir written by the frontman of the new metal band System of a Down. So what's cool about this copy, or what's cool about the copy of this book, is that it's signed by Serge. You can see to Kayla piece. Isn't that cool? Like, so basically back in May I went to a book talk slash book signing event in Powerhouse Arena. It's this bookstore in Dumbo, Brooklyn, and I got to meet Serge and get my book signed. So Eric Bogosian, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce his name, but he's from Interview with the Vampire. I'm gonna put pictures and clips and stuff so you know what I'm talking about. But they talked about a lot of the things that Serge included in his book, and Eric also talked a little bit about his personal background as well. And I think it was a really interesting talk because, I don't know, it's just really interesting. Like, the topics were interesting because they talked about their shared Armenian heritage, and they both talked about their experience with like music and all their creative endeavors and whatnot. So I thought it was really interesting and educational. So I really encourage people that read books to attend like book talks and stuff, because again, it's fun and it's interesting. It's almost like a live podcast. So if you like podcasts, you should go to like a book talk, because like it's fun, it's cool. I don't know what else to say. But anyways, my actual thoughts on the book, I really enjoyed this book. Now, I don't even want to like critique this book, because I feel like you shouldn't critique a memoir, because it's like you're critiquing someone's life. Like, oh, I didn't like how when you were 2 years old you fell off a tricycle. Like, no, that's crazy. But no, I still really enjoyed this book. Although it's written by like a rock star or whatever, it isn't like your run-of-the-mill memoir by some like popular artist that's filled with like stories of drug and alcohol use or like wild sexcapades or whatever. This book is really well written and well crafted, and it touches on some really interesting topics like activism, spirituality, music, identity, etc., etc. Now, I wouldn't recommend this book to everybody, because I think some of the other topics that I didn't mention are very heavy. For example, Serge talks a lot about the Armenian genocide and how it affected his own family, and he really goes into detail on the violence that Armenians experienced from 1915 to today. But I feel like if you're a person that's interested in history and all the subtopics that sort of encompass it, so like I said, music, spirituality, identity, injustice, etc., etc., I feel like you would really enjoy this book, because he's a cool guy, and I don't know, I just love this book. This is probably my favorite book of the whole entire year so far. Now, the next book that I read is Big Swiss by Jen Beagin. This book centers around Greta, a woman who takes on a job transcribing a sex therapist's client therapy sessions. And while she's transcribing his sessions or whatever, she becomes fixated on one of his clients, who's she nicknames Big Swiss. So I don't even want to talk about this book for too long, because I didn't really like it. It was honestly a big letdown for me. I think that the concept was really interesting, but the execution wasn't the best. So the book was supposed to be funny, but personally I didn't think the book was funny, and I just found it to be like overly weird for no reason. If anything, I think that if this book was adapted into a movie and like produced by like A24 or Neon or something, and the script was reworked a little bit, it could be a pretty good movie, you know? But I don't know. Like I said, I don't really have much else to say about this book. It was okay. After that, I read You Exist Too Much by Zaina Arafat. Now, this book summarizes itself as a coming-of-age story about a young Palestinian American woman, whose name we never learned, by the way. But yeah, this book was also a big letdown for me, because I feel like, again, the concept sounds interesting, but it just wasn't executed the best. But This story is told in a series of vignettes that jump between the protagonist's past and present. And in the vignettes, the main character shares stories of her summers with family across the Middle East to time in New York City and Italy. And in these stories, she's like yearning for something or someone that's unattainable. So personally, I feel like the constant jumping from like past to present made the story a little bit hard to follow. And yeah, that was like my biggest gripe with this book. So in addition with struggling with her love life, the main character also tries to navigate her strained relationship with her overbearing and homophobic mother, because the main character is also queer. I don't know if I said that, but yeah. And she's also dealing with an eating disorder. So yeah, like the author tries to do a lot in this novel, and in some parts she pulls it off, but in others she doesn't. So I think that what really worked is the exploration of the main character's fractured sense of belonging to the US and the Middle East. So like, for example, as a child, her American friends nicknamed her the terrorist, and she was kind of othered. So in America, she was seen as like an outsider, but when she traveled to like Jordan or Palestine, she still felt like an outsider because she was too Western or too American. So I thought that was an interesting theme in the book. I think it's an interesting phenomenon that many American children of immigrants can relate to. I think the other thing that worked was the portrayal of a complicated mother-daughter relationship. So basically, towards the end of the book, the main character was still able to have empathy for her mother despite all the trauma that she put her through, because she realized that her mother is just a girl who still carries all the sadness from all the sacrifices and pain that she went through in life. Like, she's just a product of her environment, and it's like she learns what generational trauma is. I don't know, that's literally what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I want to talk about the main character because like she was so irritating. Like, she wasn't the worst main character that I've read like ever, but she was still annoying. Yeah, she wasn't very likable, and I feel like her character didn't really make up for the story's lack of plot, because throughout the book she's like constantly obsessed with women she can't be with because they're married to men, or because she's too afraid to come out of the closet. And I think that her character started out interesting, but watching her repeat the same unhealthy behaviors over and over again, like, you know, hooking up with married women and whatnot, it felt a bit redundant and tedious. Now, when I say these critiques, I want you guys to take this with a grain of salt, because this is just my opinion. It doesn't mean that my opinion is right, because maybe the point of the book was to have a messy character that doesn't develop much, and because the character is so messy and chaotic, maybe that's why the book was written that way. Maybe that the book was written that way on purpose to match the messiness and chaotic nature of the main character. But I don't know, because I feel like the character or some of her stories weren't compelling enough to make that work, if that makes sense. But overall, I feel like this story had a lot of potential. Like I said, it has like an interesting concept because, you know, it centers around a queer Arab woman caught between like two cultures, but unfortunately the story did not deliver for me personally. But I feel like maybe I'm not the target audience. I know for a fact some other people might like this book, especially those who are looking for a story that centers around a chaotic and messy queer woman of color. I know some people like books that are messy. I do too sometimes, but I don't know, this just didn't do it for me. So the next book that I read was The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. Now, this story is also told in a series of vignettes. It's the story of a young Mexican girl growing up in Chicago. So the vignettes are a real and raw portrayal of the transition from girlhood to womanhood. Now, I didn't dislike this book, but I didn't enjoy it either. It touched on some interesting topics like girlhood and womanhood, like I stated above, and what it's like living in a patriarchal society. However, none of the vignettes really stuck with me, and if I'm being honest, I don't remember much from this book. to be honest, the only thing that I remember is the introduction, and I think that that was the most compelling and the most interesting part of the book, because the author talks about her personal background and how she became a writer. And I don't know if she's published an autobiography or if somebody has published a biography about her, but I would love to see that because she sounds like a really cool and interesting person. So yeah, if anything, I recommend this book to anyone who's looking for a short and like easy to digest book to get out of like a reading slump. So yeah. Okay, so the last book that I read was Long Island Compromise by Taffy Brodesser Akner. Now, this is probably the most recent, like this is a recent release. I feel like a lot of the books that I read in general are like older and came out like a long time ago, but this is recent. Like this came out maybe in June or July, I can't remember. But Long Island Compromise is the story of the Fletchers, a Jewish American family that amassed their wealth with a polystyrene or styrofoam factory. So this story reads kind of like a gossip column, and it goes into depth of like the messy going-ons of the Fletcher family. Now, I really enjoyed this book. I know some people didn't really like it, but I really enjoyed this book. I thought the writing was like really good and the story was over the top and absolutely hilarious. My only critique of this book is that it runs a bit too long. I think some sections could have been cut down or removed altogether, because sometimes when I was reading the book, some sections felt like redundant or tedious to read. But yeah, I would still recommend this book. Even though this book has its flaws, I would still recommend it to somebody who's looking for, again, a chaotic, messy, and funny story. I'd also recommend it to people who are fans of the show Succession or The White Lotus, because this is pretty similar to Succession. It's just like set in Long Island and it's a Jewish family. Because, what is his name? One of the characters, Beamer, is just like one of the, oh my god, I can't remember his name, but the short brother in the show Succession, the short brother that's kind of like perverted, he's just like the character Beamer in this book. Siobhan is kind of like the younger sister in this book as well. Yes, this is very similar to Succession, but it's also kind of like The White Lotus, because this is basically a satire on like the ultra rich or the ultra wealthy or whatever. So yeah, I don't know, I really like this book and I would definitely recommend it. It's just something cute and fun to read for the summer. So yeah. Okay, so those are all the books that I've read from May to July. Now, for the last book, I haven't finished reading this yet, but I still want to talk about it. This is the book that I'm currently reading. So this is Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. As you can see, I bought this book on a whim when I was in the Target book section. I saw the books and I got excited, so I bought it even though I didn't know anything about it. Like, I've heard of it before, so I was like, oh, I've heard about it and I know people like this book, so I'm gonna read it because I figured I'd like it too. But anyways, let me talk about the summary before I even talk about how I feel about the book so far. So basically, this book is about Misha and Ryan, who are two friends that have been pen pals since 5th grade, and they've never met each other. I don't want to say anything else, but I don't want to say anything else to spoil it, but I'll say this. The book is told from like dual perspectives, so it switches from Misha's point of view to Ryan's point of view. So the book also deals with heavy topics such as like bullying, depression, homophobia, and etc, etc. So I'm only 35 pages in, but I can already tell that I'm not gonna like this book. But even before I started reading this, I knew I wasn't gonna like it because I kept putting it off. This book kind of reads like an LMN movie or like a Wattpad fan fiction, because like I was reading this book and I kept laughing because I just couldn't take it seriously, because like it's told in like the first person point of view, and it's like reading the diary of a teenager that thinks that everyone in the world is against him. Like it's like, nobody understands me. Like, that's what it gives. Like, it's really cringy, and like I said, I know this book, it deals with heavy topics, so I hope that these heavy topics are handled well, but I really doubt that they're going to be handled well just based off of how the dialogue is looking. I don't think that these heavy topics are going to be handled very well. But although I don't really like the book, like I know I'm not going to like the book, I'm still going to finish it because I bought it and it's making me laugh. Like, I know it's probably not supposed to make me laugh, but it's literally making me laugh, so I'm still gonna finish it. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. Make sure to like and subscribe and let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books, and if so, what did you think of them? And also leave some like book recommendations in the comments down below, and some TV show recommendations as well. I'm looking for some new TV shows to watch. Yeah, so anyways, thank you so much for watching. See you guys in the next one. Be happy, be healthy. Bye.